How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Football season is back, and so are we. I got Hank and Nick on the episode. I think I just did that backwards as I pointed to you guys. But all three of us are on the episode today. You guys have no idea how difficult it is to get three people from three different time zones on a podcast, but we figured it out. So, guys, how's it going? Thanks for being here.
Good. I had to race my way over here. You know, I was running through like grandma's strollers. I was breaking all sorts of street laws to get here tonight, but I figured out a way. I'm super hyped, and we got like so many crazy things going on right now. So today's the perfect day to do this.
You know what they say, Nick?
What do they
don't
say?
Get caught by the cops. You didn't do anything wrong. So
that's right.
Good to have you here.
They call me Chris Johnson over here in these streets. So
we appreciate the multiple, violations that you allegedly, may have done to get in here. But right. As I mentioned, football is back, both college and the NFL. We're going to talk about both here today. We're actually going to kick it off with college football as week 0 is already taking place, and we're getting into week 1 as we're recording. We're recording this on a Thursday night. I'm actually watching UCF and Kent State right now. UCF comfortably in the lead of that game about halfway through the fourth quarter. So it looks like we're going to get that one done. But that's actually where we're going to find our first headline today is apparently people that wanted to watch football on ESPN, if you have a certain really popular, not popular because they're good, but popular because they have a monopoly over areas, cable stream, you may have an issue. And I'm going to let Hank let us know what's going on with this. So why are people having trouble watching college football now that it started back?
Well, people are having trouble because Spectrum lost their deal with Disney. And, of course, ESPN is a conglomerate of Disney. And my wife is really upset. She's punching air about it because she needs to watch the game, all the scores and all the plays when they happen. She can't do any of the streaming stuff because if she does, she gets a lot of anxiety about that. So me personally, I don't really care. I could watch it. I could watch the game on a potato like I've done for most of my life. But, happy wife, happy life. And she's not happy right now. So we need to try to change that.
Damn it, Disney.
We feel for you, man. But, Adam Silver is going to love you, the NBA commish, because they're getting rid of all that, And it's hard enough, out here to, because I hear from around that there's a guy I know that knows a guy that illegally streams. And it's getting harder and harder to do that nowadays, apparently. So, and they're cracking that down. And I'm sure college football and the NFL is next if they didn't get there already.
Yeah, it's probably going to come to that because that community is going to be a lot more obvious. Like, hey, if you can't watch it the normal way, like right now I'm good watching UCF on FS1. I'm safe there. But the Gators also played Utah tonight. And for some reason, a lot of people wanted to watch the Gators, and they can't. And they're pretty upset about it. But I don't think they're going to feel better because I just peeked at the score, and Utah's up several touchdowns already. So maybe it's a good thing they didn't watch that game. But this has happened before. Like, I even went to the ESPN channel because I am using a Spectrum app to watch this. And they put the whole paragraph up on, like, Disney's the bad guy, not us. And I've definitely seen that before. So these things tend to get resolved, even if it's like a 1 or 2 year deal and it just kicks the can down the road. So don't be shocked if that happens. But they always do it right before the NFL, right before college football, right before the things that people actually need to watch live happen. And that's how they kind of, stick it out for more money. So we've seen this before. Hopefully it has the same ending where in a week or two they come to some sort of agreement.
But I mean, just like the South Park episode showed, the mouse always wins.
Yes.
Okay? The mouse never loses. No matter how cute the mouse looks, the mouse is terrifying, okay? You don't want to mess with the mouse.
Especially if you're a Jonas brother, like in that South Park episode. So that is the issue with college football right now. Let's talk about some of the things that are good about it or at least exciting about it. What are you guys most looking forward to for college football season this year?
And for me, it's got to be Colorado. And the fact that a lot of these fans, super fans, apparently, the Yankees fans and the Dodgers fans are coming out full force to support Deion Sanders in Colorado. And I got to say, TCU is the perfect team to face because they are well coached. They are consistently a strong program, but nobody mistakes them usually for being a national champion contender. I mean, they're in that next group where they're always a strong team, a bold team, a ranked team. And Colorado, a lot of fans don't remember that. I guess that just last year they were the worst team in the Pac-12, which is saying something.
Well,
So
those fans weren't there last year that are here this year, but continue.
Sure, of course, as if it's a piece of cake to transition 58 guys by transfer graduation. So I'm looking forward to Colorado getting humbled on Saturday.
I don't like Deion Sanders either. I go back to the fact that one time he got mad at a reporter for calling him Coach Deion Sanders. And there's nothing wrong with the name Deion Sanders. That name is not a bad name. It's not like your name is Dick Buttkiss or something like that, or Buster something. But I mean, come on, dude. Like, you can't expect everyone to call you Coach Prime. If you want people to call you Coach Prime, change your name legally, and then everyone will be forced to call you Coach Prime. Like, we're not like dead naming you or anything like that. But I didn't really think that much of Deion Sanders. Sorry again if I'm dead naming him in his book, but I didn't think very much of him when he was just starting at Jackson State, because I was like, I remember one time he was like the team captain of one of the Pro Bowls, and like the way he just speaks, it's just completely unintelligible. It seems like he has zero football knowledge. He's just like a hype guy. But I mean, he actually made that program work. I didn't think he was going to leave as quickly as he did. Maybe there was some kind of writing on the wall and he wanted to get to the big time. I actually think that Colorado will be a decent school this year. I really do. I think that there's a lot of other schools in what the formerly called the Pac-12 that are going to take more of a dip than Colorado. I think one of Colorado's biggest issues was talent and coaching, and now that they have Deion there, people want to play for Deion. So I think that's the real difference between what they had and what they have right now.
Yeah, well, just to piggyback real quick there, Phil. With Deion, they're having a scuffle in practice before this first game on Saturday, and all of a sudden Deion's saying, I want the whole team throwing punches with each other. I don't get that coaching, but apparently it worked a little bit at Jackson State. And so kind of like what you said, Hank, they should be all right this year, but beating TCU in your first game with all those transfers, come on.
Well, if he wants his whole team fighting, he must get along with that former Lions coach that wanted to like eat people's kneecaps or whatever he used to say. But so when I first brought the podcast back after the flood, when I had my computer set up in my guest room, me and Nick actually talked about this at nauseum, where I think the main reason he went, like you said, I don't think people expect him to leave that quickly. I think people knew he would eventually try and find a better job. But when he got like the pity interview at Auburn and they didn't really take him seriously, and he didn't even get an interview at Florida State, those two things together pissed him off. And he basically took the, quote unquote Power 5, the best Power 5 job available in that year. And I'm a fan of Deion Sanders as a player. And like you mentioned, like you can't even hate on his success at Jackson State. But I have Colorado winning 4 games this year, and that's probably one more than they should. They'll probably sneak up on somebody. And I'm not saying they won't be great in the future. I don't have a crystal ball. But like Nick mentioned earlier, like it takes a little bit to build to. You're not going to the rapidness of Jackson State that they went from, I don't even know what they were the year before Deion does. Nobody does. Nobody watched them then to, a 1-loss year and then an undefeated regular season. It's not going to be that easy. And yes, the Pac-12 is falling apart. That's not the most difficult conference in the world, but there's still good teams in there. And again, I have them going like 4-8 this year.
Well, you would be mad too if you weren't hired and Hugh Freeze was hired.
Fair.
You would consider that to be a slap in the face, seeing as though like Deion Sanders really doesn't have many character issues, but Hugh Freeze has more character issues that could fill like a walk-in closet. It's not even funny. I would be embarrassed if I was not hired above a guy like that. And it just goes to show that college football, all they care about is winning.
Absolutely.
To a certain extent. I mean, I think you alluded to it a little bit, and here's where we can give Deion a little bit of credit. He does feel to some degree like an outsider. unlike, like you said, a Hugh Freeze, but even like a Lovie Smith, who's bouncing around from NFL to college, and like his success is marginal at best. But like some of these guys just keep getting opportunities. Anyone who's behind Nick Saban in Alabama seems to get opportunities. Now, quite a few of them have really worked out, including Kirby. But in general, it feels like Deion's kind of a guy that was a player. He's brash. He demands a lot of attention. I think some programs maybe don't like that attention. They just like a guy that's going to be quiet and won't be the big talk of the school.
I'll say this. Is Colorado going to be better this year than they would have been without Deion? Absolutely. Is that roster better with the 58 different people than last year? Absolutely. I still just think it's going to take several seasons. Like, I guess they could get their hair on fire and be bowl eligible this year. I think that should be the goal. I don't think anyone should be talking about winning the Pac-12 or this, that, and the other. If the words college football playoff comes out of their mouth, somebody better slap them. Like, it's nothing like that. But, and I'm not hating on this guy either, but I don't know that Deion's son is a Power 5 level quarterback. That remains to be seen. He may be the next, Patrick Mahomes, but we haven't seen that yet. He's made plenty. There's a reason they didn't win the Celebration Bowl with either of his appearances in it. Like, he clearly has mistakes to be made. So it remains to be seen. I have him at 4-8, and I think that's very fair. And I think at the absolute ceiling, they go 6-6, and that's if everything bounces their way.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think the bigger issue for that conference in general, the Pac-12, and granted USC and UCLA, two of the bigger schools are leaving, but man, that attendance for those games this last weekend, I get it. They're playing San Jose State. They're not playing Alabama or anything, but man, that is sad. and there's teams that are worse.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was literally about to ask you guys, we saw the USC attendance. Nick, you live in California. Hank, you lived in California for a long time. Tell somebody on the other side of the country, what is it with, why is the Rose Bowl, why does everybody come dressed as empty seats? I know it was San Jose State, but I'm looking at a packed house against Kent State. I'm going when UCF plays Villanova. I don't care who the opponent is. I want to watch my team. You guys can take it from here, but what is it? I know there's stuff to do in LA, and they make the same excuse about teams in Florida, but like, what is the deal? Like, it never used to be this way. Like, did people just not care about college sports in general on the West Coast?
It all has to do with the culture, and it's like it's like a culture of people not really caring that much about sports. Kelly and I were at one of the college football playoff games in 2019. I think it was Clemson, Ohio State or something like that.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the year, we were at a bar in Monterey, and like most people were there to watch the college football game, but there were like 6 or 7 TVs at the bar. And she was like, I want to watch the Mavs Warriors game. And the Warriors sucked. The Warriors were terrible.
Yeah, it was
like,
all the injuries and stuff.
Steph Curry was injured. Everyone was really bad. Klay Thompson was injured. Draymond Green was probably getting suspended a million times. But the bartender was like, nah, they're not good, so we're not going to put them on. And she was like, what? Like, that would never happen in Texas.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, growing up in the Bay Area, like, I went to school like in 49ers territory. When I was going to high school from 04 to 08, the 49ers had 0 winning seasons. The closest they ever got was a 7-9 season back in 06. They had a 5-11, a 4-12, and a 2-14 season, and all the kids wore their Niners jerseys like pretty much week 1, and after that they were like nowhere to be seen. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that when their teams are bad, they just don't care. And in this sense, UCLA and USC, I just feel like the students don't really care. What is it? The Rose Bowl? None of those arenas or stadiums are like close to campus. One of them is like 45 minutes away from the campus or 30 minutes. And it's the stadiums are too big. Nowadays, they make the college football stadiums a little bit smaller, much like the stadium for San Diego State. I remember watching the Arizona San Diego State game last year, and I was like, wow, like there aren't very many people here, but you can't really tell because it's a packed stadium.
It's much better to have it like Bright House, Spectrum Stadium. Now it's what, HBC. More, we have so many different names. UCS football stadium is 45,000 people, and when that thing is full, that's enough. Like that's all it takes. And like you're learning this with the NFL stadiums too that are being built. They have enough people, but it's all skyboxes and luxury suites. There's only so many actual seats, and it's better for that reason. Like you look at people marvel at Jerry World, but there's no atmosphere there. It's not like nobody's like, oh no, we got to go play the Cowboys in Dallas. Nobody care. They care that they're not at home, but they don't care that they're in that stadium. It's the most neutral thing ever. So it kind of kills that. But Nick, what's your opinion? You're still on the West Coast. You probably have friends that are, or at one point were USC and UCLA fans. Did people even watch it at home? Did they care if the Trojans win this week? Like, what's it like?
Not really. It's like
No?
what Hank said, like I guess a lot of the country is like blue collar, and then you have white collar, and that kind of goes into some of it. Other part of it is it takes forever to get there. The traffic in LA is ridiculous. And then also I think this city is super saturated with teams. You have two of every pro sport represented in LA or Anaheim if you're the Angels, which is why I think San Diego and their situation is close to perfect. Now, as a Charger fan, of course, we all wish they still were in San Diego, but San Diego State is almost always packed with fans that are amped. I mean, I don't know about Northern California, but in my humble opinion, people care about SDSU more than any other school in the state of California. And I think
that's how it comes across from my end. I know that.
One big football program there, and two, just I don't know. There's a different vibe about that city, especially with how successful they've been.
I think there's something to be said about like at USC, like there's nothing that can be done that hasn't already been done. Like if they go undefeated and win the national championship, like the average Trojan fan has seen that already. Whereas like if San Diego State makes it to a Fiesta Bowl, that's huge. And people are going to be like partying in the streets. So there's definitely just a lot of jadedness. I think that's what it really comes down to. But, the saturation of teams is that. And I think a lot of people go to, they might go there for school, but then they move. Like I think a lot of other parts of the country, if you go to Kansas State, you might move, but you don't move far. You were able to like come to games still. So like I think it's a multitude of things. I just know it looks embarrassing on TV. And yes, the Rose Bowl is this iconic thing, but when it goes away, I hope they don't think they can build something that same size. Because the new stadium, people might come out and check it out for a little bit, but that's not going to be a Band-Aid that'll last very long.
Yeah, football's for guys that want to, embrace their team, and just like you said, a lot of people are here and go, and and it's just not a team that is embraced by the city. But I go to Laker games a lot, and people love the Lakers here still. So there's this city can be a big sports town, but for football, for some reason, even the Rams, and they love them more than the Chargers, but it's not. The city doesn't care that much about them. It's just the Lakers.
Yeah, like the Rams won the Super Bowl and people liked it then, but like going into this year, like that place isn't going to be half full, I don't think.
Yeah. That place is Cowboys Stadium West Coast, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got the Vegas one that's probably very similar, but from what it looks like over here for me, like LA is Lakers, and then when the Dodgers are good, I think there is something to be said about the Dodgers, but that's really about it, it's kind of sad, which it's hard for, I hate to bring up it just means more SEC country, yada, yada, but like there's a little bit of truth to that. I don't like when Mississippi State fans, watch Alabama beat somebody and they chant SEC. Never been a fan of that whole concept, but
so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's that level of tribalism.
Vibes, he'll be like, "Oh, this means a lot for the conference." It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't care.
Who's a fan of a conference?
No, that's true. Have you ever once wanted, when the Chiefs beat the Eagles, Nick, where you're like, that's another one for the AFC? Like, I don't think that's how that works.
I think for the Pac-12, it's a bit different. Like there have been times in which, like during the Rose Bowl, like I rooted for Utah. Like I really have no hatred towards Utah at all. I mean, besides the fact that they like spank us almost every time we play them.
I
But
mean, it could be like a tiebreaker thing where it's like, all right, two teams are playing in the Rose Bowl. I'm neutral on both. This one's in my conference. It kind of makes me look better. I treat it as a tiebreaker, not as a reason.
And hey, with what the Pac-12's been doing, you can root against the conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's sure, but not for one. That's a little strange.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to see Utah win it because I felt like I watched them beat USC. I wanted them to whoop USC, and they beat USC, and that was great. And then I was like, I want to see them beat Penn State. I want to see a team like that kind of run the table. And it was the same thing the year before with Ohio State. I wanted to see Utah beat Ohio State.
Oh yeah,
that would have been awesome. Again, like no hatred towards Utah. If you're not honestly, when it comes to the Pac-12, if you weren't USC or you weren't ASU or you weren't Oregon, I mean, I really didn't care that much about you. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's fair. Like, there's plenty of teams in our conferences that we're pretty neutral on, and like being in the Big 12, I drove into work today and someone had like a West Virginia sticker on their car, and it hit me. I'm like, that's a rival now. I have never had any interaction with West Virginia fans in my life, but now we're rivals, quote unquote.
Apples at his car now or something.
Yeah, right. Am I supposed to do that? And like, I'm somebody's at in Pennsylvania and they see a UCLA shirt, like that's Big Ten rivals now. That's weird to me. But so before we jump to the NFL, you guys got any more college football related stuff?
Real quick, I was going to say, I think one additional reason is the punishment from how college football works, because I do think that one thing we can agree on is that LA is a pretty impatient town, like Hank kind of alluded to. If you lose, we're out. And that's why the Chargers fans are starting to come around because of Herbert. And I think because Alabama and the SEC and Georgia are like basically you can pencil one of them in, they're going to make it to the Final Four. And USC and UCLA most likely are not, regardless of how good they are, because, the conference is not good enough. I think that's another thing, too. They realized our ceiling is kind of like a New Year's Six. And that's about it.
And that used to be enough. Like, it used to be regional. You wanted to beat the teams around you. You wanted to go to the best bowl possible, because we went through all the years of it was just 1 versus 2, and they didn't always get who number 2 was correct. And it was like that was like Steve Spurrier used to have that issue when the Gators never used to win the SEC, and then they did with him, and they won the SEC but didn't win the national title, and people considered it like a failed year. And he's like, that's the most entitled thing I've ever heard. I'm out of here. I'm going to South Carolina. That's basically how that went down. So college football is built on the regions and the rivalry, and we're going to lose some of that. So we're going to have to figure out what's going to make it special, because a big part of what it is making it special is going to go away here, which kind of sucks for sure. UCF beats Kent State 56-6. So that's a great way to start off the college football season.
They didn't score 70. Dang it.
No, but they did beat the spread, though. It was 37.5. So
I was going to play on that. All right. That's pretty good.
All right. So with college football in week 0, that usually also coincides with the ending of the NFL preseason, which is where we're going to go next with this. I don't know what to take from the preseason anymore. I used to watch it to know who the last 10 to 12 guys on my roster would be. Somebody would make if some wide receiver made a 60-yard bomb, catch for a touchdown, you could at least think, you could be like, all right, well, that guy made the team. Maybe it's just a practice squad, but he made the team. Now I'm seeing, I think everybody saw this year, the highlight of the preseason was that Jacksonville quarterback that shedded 8 sacks against Dallas and threw a touch. That guy didn't make the Jags. He wasn't good enough to be the 3rd quarterback on the Jags after a play like that. So I ask you, I give this to you guys now, what do we do with the preseason anymore? What is the point? What are we as fans supposed to look for? Because the stars don't play, which is understandable, but if the guys playing don't even make rosters half the time, what's the real purpose?
I think it's just player evaluation. I think that a lot of these teams use the preseason to kind of figure out who's going to be the last 15 players that are going to make the team or make the roster. And then the teams that don't have those players on their team currently, they can use it as kind of scouting to see, oh, if that team releases this player, we can sign this player to our team, or we could sign this player to our practice squad to make us more successful.
Right.
I think a lot of it also has to do with some of these guys never get to play. Some of these guys will never get to play. Some of these guys will never make teams. So it's just a chance to see what they have. It's also sometimes frustrating because some of these teams, how do I put it? Some of these teams have different philosophies when it comes to the preseason. Some of these teams were playing their starters for a half in
Washington.
Watch
Chiefs.
the Commander, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Colts. They were playing their starters for a majority of the game. And then you had like the Eagles and the Chargers. I didn't even know who the Chargers were starting off with. I have no idea who that.
He did play Quentin Johnson.
I think his name was like Smart or Stick.
Easton Stick, right? Isn't that his name? Yeah.
Stick. And I was like, who's Stick?
Yeah.
Like, who's this guy? And it's sometimes kind of frustrating when you like look on social media and people are like, oh, you just got owned by this team that sucks. And you're going to be really bad. You're going to be mid. You're going to be mid-tier. And it's just like, well, yeah, we didn't care about winning the game with our starters. So, like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if these people are joking. I don't know if these people are just trolling or what. I'm definitely not the kind of person who would ever do that. So I really don't understand that mentality. I feel like it's kind of below me, but it's just like, it's not a game that you're trying to win. The guys who are playing the game are definitely trying to win the game.
Yeah.
The coaches, to a certain extent, may be or may not be trying to win the game. The commentators sometimes I feel like are a bit of an issue because and even the fans, if you win a preseason game, like the commentators are real hyped about it, and they're like, yeah, we're so awesome and we're great. And like 2015 is a season that comes to mind where like the team was playing really well and everyone was like, yeah, they're going to be great because look how well they played against the Ravens and the Packers because those were two good teams the previous season. And then they ended up being a mid-tier team to below mid-tier, fired their head coach. And then when your team doesn't do well in the preseason, you get housed in a preseason game. Everyone's just like, oh, it's just preseason. The offense was vanilla, and we weren't actually trying, and we weren't showing our actual game plan. And it's like, okay, so we can't actually criticize the players for playing poorly,
right? And then you got a team like the Ravens that went on that 24-game win streak, and they essentially got mocked for it towards the end of it. It's like, I get the games don't count. Like when the Eagles don't win a preseason game, like I don't care, but I want them to put up points. I want them to move the chains. I want guys to make catches. I want guys to make tackles. You get a turnover or two in there, cool. That's all I just want to see good play. But like if you're gonna win, I don't care. I was all for the Ravens taking pride in that win streak because it's like, hey, half these guys won't even make the Ravens, but for their 3 weeks as a Raven, they're going to work their ass off. And I actually really respected that. I was sad to see, especially the way Washington beat them. I was kind of not upset because I didn't care that much, but like it was annoying. I was a little annoyed. I'm like, I wish if I had my way, they would have won and kept it going into next year.
Yeah. So the guy you talked about, Nathan Rourke, could I interest you in a passer rating of 108 in the preseason? With 348 yards, I'd say he played pretty darn good. It's like, what do you have to do? But we talked about this, me and Phil, in a previous podcast, where they should probably start streaming the scrimmages and like the joint scrimmage practice because the culture now more and more is that like that's the old guard with the Chiefs and Steelers where they play guys for an extended period. A lot of guys are getting that Sean McVay philosophy where we play our guys like maybe a series and that's it for the whole preseason. And to me, it's obvious. Now, granted, the 1 year McVay won the Super Bowl that worked, but in general, guys that do that use the first month, and that's the new saying, as this is the preseason, the weeks 1 through 4, 1 through 5. And that's a horrible way to go about it. You're behind the 8 ball by 3 weeks. So I think we're going more and more towards that. So the question, what do I take from the preseason? Less and less. Like this is starting to become something you can't really watch because it seems a lot of these coaching staffs, it doesn't matter how you play to a certain extent. We already made up our mind by how you played in the joint scrimmage against another football team.
Yeah. Or the money matters. Like this guy played way better, but this dude has a $2 million contract. And if we cut him, like we're wasting more money than if we kept you and all this crap. And, Hank mentioned the trolls. Like you probably saw this year, like Marcus Mariota threw a pick and somebody quote tweeted. It was like, I told you Jalen Hurts wasn't that guy. And I'm like, you had to be like, I assume that one was kidding, but like I had to wonder if it was. That's how bad it can get.
If that isn't kidding, then I genuinely feel sorry for that person. And when I thought it was hilarious, I thought that was like, I know that there are a lot of Eagles fans who are kind of like have kind of turned into Dolphins fans with Tua, like Jalen Hurts defenders. If you say anything mean about them, they just get all offended and get up all in their feelings. I thought that was hilarious.
Right.
I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen because I was like, you got to be kidding. But that's funny. Like to purposefully mistake the name of the two players in the game to try to troll people. Like I thought that was hilarious. But to go back to what you said about not playing starters, well, the other side of that coin is what about injuries? What if you like the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, they have like an outside linebacker or an edge rusher who they just picked in the draft and they were all excited about, and he gets injured and now he can't play this season. You know what I'm saying? The Eagles had a few players who they got injured, a few special teams players who won't be playing this season because they tore their legs up. And I can understand that from a specific perspective to hold your starters out. There were a few games in the preseason where they just called it. Like they had such a bad injury, they just called the game.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, we're done. We're not doing this anymore because
I also like that they can end in ties now. You don't have to be that jerk team that goes for two and gets it. Now we got to play more. Like they can end in ties. Like I think that's a good point. The other issue too is like we used to know like first game you play them for your starters for like a series, second game like a quarter, third game is the dress rehearsal, fourth game not at all. Now that there's only three, like some people use the first game as the dress rehearsal, some people use the third game as the one series. Like nobody has the same plan, and it might eventually kind of get a general consensus like this is how we're doing things, but this is only our second year with only 3 preseason games, so maybe it'll eventually come to that.
I don't think so because
third.
Okay, yeah.
There's a 2-week gap now between game 3 and the start of the season, so I'm not sure. I think that might play into why teams are like, look, I'm going to play all these guys, and then all of a sudden they're not going to play any meaningful football for
2 weeks. Yeah.
So
that's a good point. This is a great time to mention. I always bring it up in the preseason. Once upon a time, we played, I think, 6 to 8 preseason games in like the 70s. Is that not insane? We played nearly as many preseason games as regular season because they were at 12 or 14 regular season games back then.
And there were like 18 draft rounds at one point.
That too. And it started at like 9 a.m, and you didn't know it until the newspaper came out the next day, basically.
Yeah. And so that kind of plays into the thing. Like back then, the football you see in game 1 typically is the same as the end of the year. Now it's like the first month offense goes berserk and then the defense finally catches up. So, that's the letdown. And I think the answer is coaching. As a coaching staff, you can't be afraid of a guy getting hurt. Don't go overboard. Don't play the guys, the whole game or even a half, but you got to be willing to say starters go out there for a couple of series, for a couple of these games and, shake off the rust.
So
you say that. And then a guy who's making $50 million a year just totally tears up their leg. I get it. Like they could have torn up their leg at some other point in the season, but you'd rather have that guy ready for week 1. If they get rusty, I can see that philosophy.
So in Madden now,
do that.
Yeah, you would feel differently. So in Madden for I'd say the past decade, if you play through the preseason, your starters play the first quarter, and then the game automatically puts the backups in the preseason. It's one of the few things Madden's done right over the years. If that became like the general consensus, like, all right, if you're going to play your starters, you play them for one quarter, and that's it. If that could be a gentleman's agreed upon thing, I think that'd be the best, because you both, not to straddle the fence here, but like, it is important to get out there and get, like, I think it was it might have been Sirianni that said all of our running backs, we got like four potential starters. He's like, I don't want them to get hit like at least once this preseason. So like everyone got between like 1 and 4 carries. And I think that's a smart way to like get out there, put the helmet on, get the blood pumping. I think that's a relatively smart way to go about it. You can tear your knee, but you can tear your knee walking to the bus that morning too. So
you will get a situation where a coach is just going to be like, I'm going to kneel on every single one and then punt.
Yeah, that's true. So,
and it'll probably be Sean McVay, because that's what he does. And with the Eagles, it doesn't matter who the head coach is. Howie Roseman definitely controls who plays and doesn't play during preseason, because it doesn't matter if it was Peterson. It doesn't matter if it was it doesn't matter if it's Sirianni. It's been the same philosophy. And there's no way Peterson and Sirianni have the same philosophy. Those two guys, different. There can't be anything different between two guys that I've ever seen coach a team from one season to the next. There's no similarity between those two dudes.
Right.
And Doug Peterson cut his own son from the Jaguars. I had to throw that out there. Say, hey, people gave him shit for giving him like a training camp invite. What are you going to say now? No nepotism there, man. Sorry, buddy. Back to the USFL you go. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, just, to wrap up the point, you see in the NBA with low management, how is that doing with keeping guys healthy? So
terrible,
in the end,
actually. Thanks for asking.
You're going to get hurt, so play the guys.
Definitely. So last episode, I had Hank on, and we were talking about the release of the Kelly Green jerseys. So before we move on to our big segment here for the episode, we're going to buy and sell different NFL teams. If you haven't noticed, Hank has the Kelly Green jersey. It is on his person. Sir, I'm going to full screen you now, and you're going to give us your quick Kelly Green jersey review. The floor is yours.
Stand up, take a bow. So this is the Kelly Green Philadelphia Eagles jersey. I could kind of stand up. This is the large size jersey, and I'm someone who I really like to get the limited style. Like Nick is obviously wearing the game jersey. That is the like the lower tier, and I have a few of those. They're not bad, but I don't like how they feel in the shoulder. And then there's the limited jersey, which is the kind of like mid-tier one. It used to have like stitching on like the numbers, and then it had like the logo was a patch, and the swoosh was a patch, and the NFL shield kind of shines like the authentic one does. And then I have an authentic one, which I don't like because of like where the sleeve cuts. Like it's like crinkly, and it does not look good on me. I'm gonna say, like, but this was a jersey that was a long time coming, because I know that there's a lot of Eagles fans who they really wanted to bring Kelly Green back, and it was the color that the team wore from pretty much the time that they started back in 1933 all the way to 1995. And the only reason why it was changed, Phil and I had a disagreement about this. I think I said something like his wife didn't like it, and he said something along the lines of he wanted to Jeffrey Lurie kind of wanted to make his own name and change the uniform and kind of distance himself from.
Yeah, I said that, he wanted to put his like fingerprints now that he owns the team. And like, I think both can be true. I think his wife didn't like it, and that was his reasoning to like, well, I kind of want my own fingerprints on it anyway. I think both can be true.
And it's very possible that the new Christina Lurie, who he only marries women named Christina,
who's got a type,
actually likes Kelly Green. So that's very possible. I know that the fans kind of wanted it for a long time. It sucks that they won't be wearing black, because they play really good in black against a few teams, namely the New York Giants.
Yep.
But I think that it's just like a kind of like a prideful thing. Like these were the colors for the city for such a long time, and like these anything Kelly Green recently is just sold like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Like I woke up at around 8:15 or 8 o'clock or earlier than that to just buy this one. And if you own a Kelly Green Eagles jersey that is the new kind of Vapor Fuse, I guess you could say really the only difference is like basically what Oregon has been wearing. You'll see it in college football nowadays. This like mesh material in the
Mhm.
collar. Um, the only thing I don't like about this thing that's different from like my other one, it's not the fact that the numbers are screen printed and not sewn. It's the fact that there's just this really annoying V that goes right across the collar. The old one used to have like one that like went across like this, but
Yeah.
like I have less movement ability with this
And
one.
that's on the new jerseys on the field as well. You'll see that V that you're talking about
Yeah.
with this new Vapor. I think
The
the V. I think that's
Vapor
why they call them that, because they
The
have the V.
Vapor, no, because the old one was called the Vapor Untouchable. This
Mhm.
one's called the Vapor Fuse,
Okay.
and I don't really like it as much. But I still like this jersey. I decided to get a Dallas Goedert jersey. I never bought a tight end jersey. I don't really buy jerseys that much,
Hmm.
but you know, this one is nice. I can wear it when the Eagles play the Bills or the Dolphins. That's the other thing, that the teams that they're playing against with these jerseys, it's not really much to write home about because the Eagles really don't have a rivalry with either of those teams.
Right.
They should be good games, but I don't know. I think that anything Kelly Green for Eagles fans is going to sell really quick. Like I was trying to buy a sideline hat that was Kelly Green, and right as I was about to buy it, like they were completely sold out. Luckily, they brought it back, or they made more of them, and I bought one, as well as a Kelly Green shirt. But you know, it's just something about the city, and it's something about the Kelly Green uniform that means a lot to the people, and it means a lot to the city. You could like they could have released like a moldy bag of tangerines, but as long as the bag was Kelly Green, I'm sure Eagles fans would have bought it.
They would have sold out too. I haven't. I was trying to decide which one I'm. Oh, I'm gonna ultimately get one. I just wasn't. I knew didn't have the time to try and get it on release day, so I'd already accepted. All right, I'm gonna get one later in the year, and I didn't know what player I wanted, but now you can get custom ones, so I may just get my name and number. That way, it's good for eternity. I lean that way a lot, especially with pro jerseys and the way things like that go. So that's my plan as of right now for those. But it looks great. You've shown us more detailed pictures. I've seen them everywhere now, and it's great. And I can't wait to see him on the field twice this year. So that's going to be awesome. So that we had plenty of college football talk. I'm glad we got to mention the preseason stuff. Before we get out of here, we're really going to get the main segment done today. We did this last year, and I think we did it the last time that the three of us did one to preview the season. We're going to do what I'm calling buy or sell. You give me the teams that were good last year that you don't think will be quite as good, or bad teams from last year that you think will be good. You can give me one or two of each. Let's first go with the buys. We'll do Hank, and then we'll do Nick, and then I'll go. Teams that, let's say, didn't make the playoffs that you think have the best chance of making the playoffs this year.
I'm buying the Detroit Lions. I think that for about 3 years or 2 years now, ever since Dan Campbell became the head coach, ever since he got that embarrassing opening press conference out of the way, people have kind of started taking him more seriously. Like again, that opening interview that for the media, I thought that was a horrible interview, or I get press conference.
Yeah.
I thought that was, if I'm a fan, that's like the last thing I want to hear. It just seemed like very not serious, especially for the Lions, who, you know, they've got like the longest drought of postseason wins in NFL history right now. The last time they won a playoff game was like 1992 or something like that. So I feel like he's come in, he's kind of established a culture in which they're going to be aggressive. They're going to play really well on offense. They're going to go for it on fourth down a few times so that they can get more points. They were one of the better offensive football teams last year. Jared Goff, who kind of like the league left him for dead after 2021, he played really well. They've got a good batch of receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and that new title De La Porta or something, or Deporta or something like that. I think that's what his name is.
Sam Laporta.
You can watch Nick's stream of the Chiefs-Lions Thursday night football game. I was almost going to draft him in fantasy football, but I didn't. But I think that if they can get the defense together, you look at their division, and there's a lot of we don't know who's going to win that division. There's a lot of big question marks. Obviously, the Vikings have gotten better. All those teams have looked like they could make a run for things.
It's a wide open division.
It's going to be Detroit.
Okay.
So I'm buying Detroit.
I got you.
Interesting. In the era of quarterback, am I going to buy a team that has, maybe one of the best emerging passers in the league who finally has an offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore? No. Am I going to buy Tua Tagovailoa, who was a dark horse for the MVP? No, I'm not going to buy him either. I'm going to buy Kenny Kitten Mittens, the quarterback of Pittsburgh. And my only theory is you got a Hall of Fame coach there, and then you had a team on the doorstep of doing something special, and then TJ Watt happened, and he got hurt, and he was on pace to break the record. And I think he could this year. He's as good as any pass rusher in the league. He's now healthy. Looks like George Pickens from practice and all that. He's looking like, all the fanfare about Justin Jefferson. George Pickens could be right up there as one of the best receivers in the league. So I got Pittsburgh. There's not a lot of other guys I can talk about because, Pittsburgh is a little thin, but I think star power they have can really help. And that division is a little a mixed bag right now. I don't think the Browns will be very good. Bengals are dealing with Burrow, even though it looks like he'll play. And then the Ravens, are hit and miss. So Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That's one of the last teams I would have maybe thought to go, but you make a convincing argument. I would have easily picked the Lions as well for all the reasons that Hank said. So to dig a little deeper in it, I kind of look at where'd it go? So first for the Lions, like you could almost make that you could say that about the Vikings because the Packers might be out of their way because they don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. The Bears could maybe put it all together. But to again, I wanted to pick the Lions, but to go out there a little bit, my honorable mention is like the Falcons because I think they're a quarterback away. As I say that, you say in the era of quarterback, I don't think Desmond Ritter's that guy, but if he can be average, I think the Falcons have what it takes to win a very winnable division. And I would say the exact same thing about the Bucs. If Baker wakes up feeling dangerously 8 to 10 weeks of the year, that could get him in the playoffs right away. So I will buy, I guess, half of the NFC South to win it there, to win that division anyway. Absolutely. So let's go with teams. Maybe either they made the playoffs or just had a good account of last year that you don't think will be able to duplicate that success. What teams are we selling on?
You want to go first, Nick?
All right, I'll bail you out on this one. I'm thinking your question, I guess. To answer that question specifically, I'd say maybe Minnesota. Their playoff loss was really glaring to me. But I'm actually going to go. They didn't make the playoffs, but based on their fanfare, it feels like they won the Super Bowl. Denver. I think they are way overhyped right now. And especially now that guys are getting hurt left and right. That division is ridiculous. And, even in his heyday, I thought Russell Wilson was overrated. 9 Pro Bowls. I mean, I want to say that's more than guys like Phillip Rivers and Big Ben. It's like, was Russell Wilson really better longer than them?
You have to understand that the AFC always had really good quarterbacks and the NFC not necessarily. Did you know that Tim Tebow, I think, went to just as many Pro Bowls as Matthew Stafford? Did you know that?
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
like I think
That's
Matthew Stafford,
great research.
they both went to the same Pro Bowl. I think 2011 was the only Pro Bowl either of them went to, even though Matthew Stafford threw for four. Oh well, he threw for 40 touchdowns one time when they went to the Super Bowl, but he had 17 interceptions, and he still didn't go to the Pro Bowl. And I think
Yeah.
the reason being is because the NFC had Dak Prescott, the NFC had Tom Brady, the NFC had Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
He
Well, Aaron Rodgers, but
and Aaron Rodgers too.
Yeah.
yeah. Fair point. You know what? I take back my statement there on 9 Pro Bowls. Well, the point is, we saw last year with Geno Smith that Pete Carroll had a lot to do with that. I mean, that guy's a quarterback whisperer for sure. So, and granted, Sean Payton should get more out of Russell Wilson than
Hackett.
Hackett. But yeah, I just don't see. And the other thing is, it's very hard to repeat being a defense that good, which is why I'm actually a little scared of the Eagles. You know, are they going to be the 85 Bears rushing the passer again? I know I'm talking to a couple of Eagles guys, but that's what I'm concerned about with them. But with the Broncos, I don't think they're going to repeat that type of defense again. Granted, Surtain is legit, but I don't think Denver is going to be the Super Bowl contender that people are already pegging them to be.
People are pegging Denver to be Super Bowl contenders?
Yeah, well, you know, maybe I'm on the wrong Twitter files, but yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can agree with you in the sense that parity happens. You know, I really worry about every time the Eagles do really well, they are either average the next season or below average the next season. So that does worry me. And obviously, the last time the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, they were a pathetic football team that was a shell of their former selves by the end of the season because of injuries and locker room drama and off the field nonsense. So I can definitely understand that situation there. I cannot see this team not going to the playoffs, but and everybody's been talking about this, and I hope I'm not stealing Phil's one, but the Buffalo Bills, they've been a team that has been one of the better teams for a few years, from 2019 to 2022. A lot of when the 2022 season started, Josh Allen was looking like he was going to be the MVP, and it was looking like the Bills might go to the Super Bowl. But then when December kind of rolled around, they kind of petered off. And when they played that playoff game against Miami, it didn't look good. Like they won. They didn't win convincingly. They defeated a third-string quarterback, but they didn't look good.
Right.
And then when they played against Cincinnati at home, they got spanked.
Yeah.
You know, they got spanked by a team that was just a superior football team, a football team that in the trenches were very injured. Whatever game plan the Bengals had against the Bills or defensively, it just worked, and it just seemed like you have a really good Josh Allen. Josh Allen has a chance to be one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. He is so insanely talented, and he goes from a guy who people thought he was going to do nothing to a guy who plays like a professional. But then I don't know what something turns in his brain where he just plays too aggressively, and in the red zone he throws too many interceptions. He lost the game last year against the Jets where he was just throwing the dumbest interceptions that I've ever seen in my life. But he's kind of like Brett Favre in that mindset. He's kind of like a Brett Favre if Brett Favre was insanely mobile and was a bowling ball, right? I don't know what happens to that dude. I don't know what happened to that team in the playoffs. I really didn't care to look too much into it, but they just couldn't get out of their own way. And the fact that the Dolphins were really only bad last season because Tua kept getting concussions, and the Jets, they have Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what's going to happen there? The Jets look like a vastly improved team. We could have discussed them if we wanted to.
Oh yeah, they're going to be good.
I feel like when the Bills starters played the Steelers starters in the preseason. And again, you can't really take anything from the preseason.
Mm.
The Steelers tarred and feathered the Bills in the first half of that game with Josh Allen on the field, mind you. Just absolutely pulled their pants down and smacked them right on the bottom, all right?
So I didn't have the Bills, but I will say this.
It's a good pick.
I bought the Bills stock last year, and the fact that I'm not this year is almost the same as selling, you could say. So I definitely agree with your point. Two teams.
And Stephon Diggs is pissed off right now.
We'll see if that.
According to sources, he hasn't come out personally and said that.
So, but I agree. I think I talk about windows all the time. Theirs is inching closer, and nobody seems to be in a hurry to get up and prop it back open. So we'll see what happens there. One was a feel-good story, and one was kind of an annoying story that I'm going to sell on both these teams. The Seahawks were a great story last year. I don't necessarily see them
say that.
Replicating that success. And then for Giants fans that pump their chests, like, we made the playoffs, like, you were also third in a 4-team division. So let's just pump the brakes on how good that actually was. And I'm not saying they can't sneak in that same fashion again, but I don't see them necessarily making noise either.
I would more say the Seahawks. Look, I don't necessarily 100% disagree with you in that sense, but the NFC West is a winnable division.
No doubt.
I look at it as it's a 2-team division between, and I don't make very many of these guarantees, between Seattle and San Francisco. Is Brock Purdy the real deal? Who knows? Is Geno Smith a flash in the pan? Who knows? With the Giants, what they did last year was very impressive in the sense of they were a 4-win football team or a 3-win football team, and they get a new coach. And I'm jealous because I really like their coach. Their coach was my ideal coach before we hired Sirianni and Dable. The only issue that I have with the Giants is not the fact that they're pumping themselves up, because Giants fans usually do this, and Giants players usually do this when they have even an average season. I think they made a lot of improvements, and I think that if Daniel Jones wants to be respected, I think that they have a cast of players in Waller and Hyatt and Hodgins who can do a lot offensively. They've revamped their offensive line. They got a new center. They got new players on defense. It seems like the New York Giants is a place where they want to play. The problem that I have with the Giants is the fact that they are so arrogant that they treated last season, they got so hyped up after last season, and then they just got their buns whipped by the Eagles 3 times and completely got eliminated, despite the fact that many people in the media, I know people, no one said that the Giants were going to beat the Eagles in the playoffs. No, people did say that. I know.
And if they didn't think they were going to lose by 4 touchdowns like they did either.
I knew people who were like, "Oh, the Eagles are just going to lose straight up because," and here's why they said that, right? In the final game against the Eagles, the Giants, who were starting Davis Webb, he actually played well.
He did, yeah. They kept it close.
He was the best quarterback against the Eagles than even Daniel Jones was. But the Eagles were kind of playing a game of, hey, we just want to win. We don't care if we win by 1 or we win by 20. We just want to win. And that's kind of what happened. And then people were like, oh, the Eagles aren't a big deal. The Giants are going to beat them in the playoffs. The Eagles are going to go one and done because they're the Cardinals of 2021 and the Steelers of 2020. Well, the Eagles took that and they blew the lid off the Giants. And I know I'm going on for a while here, but there was a game last season where Kevon Thibodeau sacked Nick Foles, knew that Nick Foles was injured, did snow angels as a celebration. Oh, yeah. And when Jeff Saturday, who was the head coach of the Colts and a future Hall of Famer, mind you, said that was absolutely disrespectful, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
His response was, "Who's Jeff Saturday? Who's Jeff Saturday? Who's Jeff Saturday? Were you born yesterday? Were you were you not around when Peyton Manning was quarterbacking and Jeff Saturday was a Pro Bowl center every single year? And then some other guy who's a player on the Giants, a defensive player, was like getting rough with Aaron Rodgers, and he kind of like pushed him after Aaron Rodgers made a big play, and then Aaron Rodgers scored a touchdown in the preseason, and he kind of gave him a push afterwards, and the guy was like, and Aaron Rodgers was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, Fox is pretty great, man. This year's
Aaron Rodgers.
So it sounds to me like we kind of have the agreement where it's almost that even if the Giants got success, I don't know if they have the team to handle said success. So that's not a good move for them either.
I think they have the team that can handle it. I think that they're well coached. I just think that the arrogance does not match what they did last season.
I think any team that can do snow angels while someone's having a seizure next to them, I question how well they're actually being coached. Maybe the X's and O's, which is really what you meant, but I mean the overall, I think there's some questions in there.
Yeah. To end the show, let's have a fun disagreement. I think Seattle's going to be really good.
I mean, I would love to see it. I just that doesn't seem like something that happens twice. I'm all for it. They wrote off Geno Smith. He didn't write back though, so maybe he won't write back again. Like I'm cool with it. I'd be surprised if it happens again.
I think that they definitely can be successful. I mean, you draft a new receiver, a nice shiny receiver from Ohio State, and you already have DK Metcalf. You've given Geno Smith all the weapons that he needs. I just think that they kind of need to know who their running back is going to be. I think that has been kind of up in the air ever since Marshawn Lynch retired. And
Walker last year was pretty good. He ripped apart when he played.
Yeah, that's true, but just more consistency from him. And then their defense has just been kind of suspect ever since the Legion of Boom retired.
Yeah, that's always been a question.
They haven't been best in the NFL in the last couple of years. I mean, what's up with that?
Right. All right, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to put our 3 time zones together to make this happen. I really appreciate you guys' time tonight. Appreciate everyone for listening and watching. Before we get out of here, definitely check out Nick's YouTube channel, Charger Dude 95. Another Dream Bowl just passed. I won't give away who won, but it was a great game that me and him got to call. Hank has a lot of stuff going on his channel, too. Another championship game of sorts is dropping on that very soon. And on his other channel, recently, a total twist of things that people are used to from these channels. Me and Hank got to review the Power Rangers Netflix special. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's going to drop here sometime soon. I'm not trying to give Hank a timeline, but it'll be out sooner than later, and you guys should definitely check that out.
That was fun, and I'm just trying to see what I can do to kind of cut that down with all the computer space that I have. Definitely trying to upload the best Tecmo Bowl that I have, but that really is the next project that I'm working on. Just figuring out how to edit that down to hopefully something that's around 15 to 20 minutes.
Nice.
Hey, man, I'm seeing some extra wrinkles on your forehead, so you must be in the middle of a championship game for the BTFL.
There you go. And not to add homework to it, but I had so much fun doing that. I would love to go back and review the other movies from back in the day and just with a modern eye. Not to give you more hope, but maybe we could do stuff like that in the future. But again, guys, thank you all for listening. For Nick, Hank, and myself, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.